Hello and welcome to yet another video. Today we are going to learn about CSS grid. We'll be learning about grid and making two layouts with the help of that. First, which is visible on your screen, a very simple layout. In here, we'll understand about the properties of grid, what does display grid does, what is place items, grid columns, grid rows. Then we'll use those properties to create a little bit tougher background than this, which is this, not background, layout. So we'll create two layouts and help understand grid with it. Let's get started. So I have an HTML and a CSS file with me, nothing fancy, plain old HTML and CSS. First, we'll be creating this this layout. Okay, so I have a wrapper. Inside that, let me create a div container, which will house all the 6 elements. Now, because I am making it with grid, I do not need to create 2 separate divs and then put 3 divs inside them. I'll just create a container and put all the 6 divs inside it, like this. An item 6 times. Also, I'm putting individual class on each. So item 1, 2, 3 like this. And inside that, I'll simply write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which comes out to something like this. So I have a div which has item class and an individual item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. How does this look so far? Let me show you. These are the numbers and it looks like this. So we have to convert this into this. First thing, let me get this thing in the center and apply some width and background color on it, as in here. Let me open this side by side. To get everything in center, or should I say to get the container in center, we can use flex, we can use grid. First, height. By default, the wrapper will take height of just the content in it. I'm forcing it to take full viewports height. Now, I can either use flex and then justify content center and align item center. Yes, everything will be in center, as you can see here. It is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with this. However, you can do this using grid as well. If you were to use grid and do this, this is how you would. Just a single property, place item center. It is a combination of justify content and align item center. You will see the same output, which is this. You can use either. Okay, we have everything in center. We have the container and all its content in center. I'm applying some width to the container. Otherwise, being a block element, it will take the full width. Let's say 70% of viewports width. Okay, let me open up inspect element as well so that you can see this is the wrapper. It only takes 70, this is the container. It only takes 70% of the wrapper. Also, let me apply some background color on it. There you go. On this background color, text white will be much more efficient. Let me also increase the font size. There you go. What I am seeing here is 6 blocks, 3 in one row, the next 3 in the second row, and all have same width and height, and the gap between them is same as well. So I have to incorporate all this into mine. The first thing that we should understand, the first difference we should understand between flex and grid is flex is a one-directional system, while grid is a two-dimensional system. Now, what does that mean? Using flex, you can either make Elements which are vertical, you can make them horizontal, or you can do the opposite. Elements which are horizontal, you can make them vertical. Point is, at any given point, flex can only work in one direction. It can either work in row or it can either work in columns. With grid, there is no such limitation. Grid can work simultaneously in a row as well as in column, which we will see in a few moments. So the first thing that I'm doing is, because flex also had to be applied on the parent, grid also had to be applied on the parent. So I have to place the item div, but I'll apply properties on the parent. Display grid. The first difference you might note is, as soon as we applied display grid, elements changed. As soon as we applied display flex, when we used to apply flex, grid, nothing happened. Why? As I told you, grid works in 2 dimension. That is, elements can be horizontal and vertical. So grid doesn't do anything. It asks you how you want to place them. With flex, there was only one option. If the elements were vertical, they can only be horizontal. So that is why when we applied display flex, flex direction column automatically took the value row and elements became horizontal. No such case with grid. That is, display grid does nothing, changes the children in no way. However, what we now have is this. These are known as grid lines. Now, this is something very important. I'll come to that again first, along with display grid. Now, in the reference, as we can see, we have 3 columns. This is one column, this is second column, and third column. I have to divide my container into 3 columns. The property I can use for that is grid column. Grid column, however, is a shorthand of grid column start and grid column end. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Right now, we need grid template columns. My bad. Grid column we'll be needing on the children. So grid template columns. Grid template columns tells us in how many column you want to divide an element. As we just saw, we want 3 columns. 3 columns of equal sizes. This is important. 3 column each has equal size. Grid template columns. If I do 100 pixel, what that will tell us is create 1 column of 100 pixel width. Just 1 column. As you can see, the rest of the space is empty. If I wanted 2 columns, each of 100 pixels, I can do this 100 px space 100 px. Now, as you can see, it has created 2 columns each of 100 pixel width. As you can see, the width is 100 pixels. You can create columns of different varying width as well. Now, the third column has 300 pixels. However, I simply want that it should be divided in 3 columns, each having same width. Yes, I can do this 33%, 33%, and 33%. However, as you can see, with 33% as well, there is 1% of space remaining. Grid gives us a special unit called as FR or fraction. What I'll do is, I'll say 1 FR, 1 FR, and 1 FR. FR fraction, what it does is, it simply divided the whole thing, the whole container in 3 equal-sized columns. Whatever 70 VW was, whatever it was in pixels, it simply divided it by 3 and applied that to each columns. 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. let's suppose, just for the sake of understanding, if I do this, now what has happened is the first column and the third column, they have same width. The second has double the width of first and third. Only in the case of one FR, that browser simply divided the width, total width by 3. If I do it like this, now this one has double the size of this and this. If I were to do it like this, now what has happened is column 2 has 4 times the size of 1 and 3. This is how FR works. This is how fraction works. However, I simply want all the 3 columns to have equal width. So 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. Now this is completely fine writing 1 FR 3 times. You can either do this or you can apply a function. Repeat. I want 3 columns and I want each having width 1 FR. Same thing as writing 1 FR thrice. You can use either. Let's copy and paste this. Also, as we can see, yes, there are 2 rows by default, one first row and second row. However, I want the row to have a certain height. For that, I can use grid template rows. If you want the rows to have unequal heights, you can do that. But I want, let's say, 250 pixels and 250 pixels. So 2 rows, each having 250 pixels of height. Or let's reduce it a bit. Let's make it 200 only. As you can see, the whole height is 400 pixels. So what I've applied is grid template columns. I have said, give me 3 columns, each having 1 FR. Give me 2 rows, each having 200 pixel height. Yes, of course, you can apply repeat to grid template rows as well. Repeat. Give me 2 rows, each having 200 pixel width. Same effect. Let us now understand the grid lines, the lines that you see. There are 2 types of lines here. One is horizontal and one is vertical. Of course, the horizontal lines, that is this one, second is this one, and the third. These are grid rows. And similarly, one column line, 2, 3, and 4. These are grid columns. Or let me actually create them with a separate color. Yeah. So this is first column line, second column line, third, and fourth. These are grid lines. The orange one are grid row lines and green one are column lines. This is the most important thing to understand. Also, you can see some numbers along with that. Numbers in orange boxes. This one is row 1. This is row 2. This is row 3. The other one is for column. So this is column 1, column 2, 3, and 4. Also, you can see some negative numbers, yes, but we'll come to that in a little later. These are grid lines that we must understand very clearly. What are they and how are they helpful? Oh, acha, we applied everything in inspect element. So I forgot to copy paste that. No worries. Okay, we need to remove the annotation. 1 second. Yeah. So we applied grid template column and grid template rows. So grid template rows, I want 2 rows, each having 200 pixel width. There you. Let me copy this. Let me paste it in my CSS. There you go. You can also see the grid lines. Two things. One, the numbers are in center of each of the box. And as you can see, the box 1 is not at the first position, but at the last. However, that is not in HTML. That is not done in HTML. Let me show you. In HTML, the box 1 is at the first place only. Still, it is coming at the end. Now, this is something we need to understand, and grid lines help us in that. Okay, before that, let me take this number in the center. So we have a common class item. Let me use that. Of course, I can do that with display flex and grid. Again, after display flex, justify content center, align item center. If you are using grid, you can do that with just place items center. Also, let's improve the font size to 2 rems or we 4 rems. There you go. Copy and paste. Now, I want the box 1 at this place. For that, let me have the item 1 class. Item 1. So I'm using dot item 1 actually. Yeah. So I'm writing a property grid columns. Grid column is a shorthand for grid column start and grid column end. What is happening right now? This box, it starts on column 1, as you can see the number, and ends at column 2. If I write like this, you will see no change. What it signifies? It signifies that grid column start has value 1 and grid column end has value 2. Or in simple words, this box starts at column 1 and ends at column 2, which was happening by default. If we'll eventually place it where 6 is, first let me swap it with 2. So if I were to do that, if I were to take the 1 and put it here, what I'll do is, originally it is starting at column 1. I'll say, I'll ask it to start at column 2. It is right now ending at 2. I'll ask it to end at 3. So if I do this, 2, 3. No worries that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they shifted. That doesn't matter. However, grid column has done its job perfectly. Now, block 1 is starting at column 2 and ending at column 3. If I remove this, everything is sorted. Now, what I'm telling it is I want it in place of 6, right? So this will have to start at column 3 and end at column 4. But in the second row, grid column has done its job. Now the task is for grid row. Currently, it starts in the first row and ends in second. I'll tell it to start in the second and end it in the third. There you go. Now, despite being the first div in HTML, item 1 is here. That is, it starts in column row 2, ends in row 3 starts at column 3 and ends at column 4. Now, let me come to the negative numbers as well. As you can see the negative numbers here. Currently, there are only 4 columns and 2 rows. In the future, I might add some more divs, or maybe if it were a user specified thing, they can add n number of rows. In such cases, the ending value, the value of grid column end and the value of grid row end has to change. In such cases, instead of having a positive value, because we do not know if the column ends at 4, if the row ends at 3. So what we do is we keep the start value as is and we say -1. -1 simply tells the browser start in this row, start in this column, third column, and end it in the last column, whichever it is. As our last column is 4, -1 will simply be replaced by 4. If I had 4 more columns after this, -1 would have been replaced by 8. And the same with row. Start it in the second row and end it whatever the last row is, which is 3 or -1. So you can write this or you can have positive numbers. I would suggest to start with positive numbers, then go on to the negative ones. As you can see, the output will be the same. So if I just copy this, so you can have minus numbers, negative numbers, or if you were to do this, the output will be exactly the same. In the next video, we'll try and create a similar layout. That's it for this one. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.